Well, hopefully your family is not one of those that fights over money and inheritance and things like that, but then again, it could be. We've got an expert on today's show, like I mentioned to you. His name is Mark Accetura. He has written a fabulous book called Blood and Money.
I try to mix psychology along with law. So I want to go beyond how the law works, the nuts and bolts, to get into the psychology of why people behave the way that they do. You can help families better if you understand what motivates them and why they're fighting.
Does it come down to just that, money? Is it all greed?
Money is how we keep score in our society. So what appears to be fighting over money is really fighting about self-importance and acceptance and the things that make us feel good about ourselves as people. You know, greed is simply a hunger that we all have. I mean, I'm greedy in many ways. We all are. We needed to be greedy to survive. We learn to modify our greed to live as a group, because you can't have a group of all greedy people. There's no collaboration, no cooperation, and everybody fails. The death of a loved one is when all that comes out and the greed can become unbridled, and we lose our frontal lobe thought process of modifying our behavior.
Why do families fight over inheritance?
Doing my research, it was such an epiphany for me. I didn't understand what was going on in modern psychology. Things like sibling rivalry, the treatment of step-parents, even elder abuse can be described on the basis of what is evolutionary appropriate behavior. It all starts from we are mammals, and we've evolved to fancy people that wear ties and nice suits like we have, but under there's still this little bit of an animal, and my first chapter is called Behaving Like Animals. We've learned to survive by sticking together as a pack. People want to be part of their family, so where does the greed come in? You don't want to be kicked out of the tribe. So to be excluded in an inheritance is to be sort of made an orphan retroactive to birth. The proposition of being kicked out is very scary, and that's a behavior where people engage in at the time of death where they're afraid. And they're afraid of not being important, being insignificant, being left out. And that's the greed factor. When they feel that big fear, they lunge for more to assuage those anxieties.
That mortality recognition, I mean, we might die as well. And does that fear and that anxiety, does that change people and cause some of these fights as well?
No question. There's something called terror management. It's a subgroup of psychology that believes in this concept that we all live in terror of our own death. When somebody dies, we both are deprived of someone that may have provided us safety and comfort, and also, on the other hand, we're reminded of our own mortality. So big fears arise when someone passes.
Causes people to do maybe different things than they never expected that they might do in a situation like that.
They engage in what looks from the outside to be very crazy behavior. When you scratch below the surface and understand why they're feeling these anxieties and why they're reaching out, they're grasping for recognition, money, whatever, it allows you to help them better, but also it makes them more human.
You know, you do a great job in your book, Blood and Money, of describing some of these crazy personalities that blows up out of proportion when a parent dies,
right,
and causes some of these fights.
Basically, 10% of our population suffers from what are called cluster B personality disorders, antisocial behavior, etc. And another 10% of people manifest traits of significant personality disorders. 20% of the people running around there have problems, or as their siblings say, they're nuts or crazy. And it's true. People with personality disorders are very disruptive to families generally, and at the time of inheritance can cause tons of problems.
You know, what is inheritance?
Well, I will get on
Okay.
Look at from a legal perspective, but that's a question I had to answer very early on in the book. Inheritance is of money, but from a genetic point of view, we inherit some of the physical traits of our parents. Mental illness is a gift that keeps on giving. Your family name is a form of inheritance. If you're a Bill Ford or a Bernie Madoff, You leave a legacy, for better or worse, to your family. The term inheritance is a very multifaceted thing. But as far as the law is concerned, it predominantly addresses the cash money. That begins to show you the difficulty in understanding what's going on right from the very get-go. We're only dealing with one very small part of the multifaceted problem.
So should I just give all the money away then? And why should I foist all of these problems on the family? I'm going to give it all to charity, or I'm going to give it to the next door neighbor. Then my kids aren't going to have any issue whatsoever.
I certainly don't want to say don't give it to charities, but if you disinherit your children entirely, it's not just that they'll hate you forever, but it'll leave a residue of hurt and anger. That'll affect them in their life, so I don't recommend that. But you can plan to create the likelihood that there'll be as little conflict as possible, and everyone will be as happy as humanly possible at a very difficult time in life. There are toxic people. Toxic people can leave a toxic inheritance. Certainly how you leave your money is your prerogative, and is a very loud statement to everybody in your family and outside your family. I'm happy to say most people don't disinherit their loved ones. Disinherited people are left with a taint, with an inner sense of emptiness that they often carry on into their other relationship.